Um, can you say it again? 15 minutes later, in Huai District, Huai all the way, and at the gate of Huayang Middle School, someone will take revenge on the daughter of Pei Yuchang, the captain of the criminal police detachment. 15 minutes later? Pei Yuchang's daughter. How did you know? Are you there? You don't need to worry about how I found out. Now that another minute has passed, if you don't hurry up, it will be too late. Can you be more specific? We. Jinan City 110 Command Center. After hanging up the call, the operator stared at the information just recorded on her screen and was still a little confused. She looked at the time in the lower right corner of the computer. Today is Friday, and 15 minutes later, it is almost the time when ordinary middle schools are dismissed. She recalled the previous conversation again. Why does it feel like something is not right? But she doesn't have so much time to think about it now. Of course, Pei Yuchang, the captain of the criminal police detachment, knows that in just a few years in Jinan City, he brought his subordinates to solve several cases, including 3 old cases. After successive detections, the murderer was caught. He is a well-known figure in the Jinan police circle in recent years. Although she doesn't know how old Pei Yuchang's daughter is and where she is studying, if his family is targeted for revenge, the possibility is very high. Regardless of whether the information revealed by the call to the police is true or false, she has to report it quickly, notify the people in Huai District, and ask them to call the police immediately. At the same time, Pei Yuchang had to be informed. After all, this matter was related to the safety of his daughter. Xingyun, who hung up the phone, threw the sequined mobile phone in her hand, glanced at the 3 girls huddled in the corner, and walked slowly to the toilet sink. A 16th appeared in the mirror on the wall. 7-year-old girl. The girl was wearing a blue and white school uniform, her hair was a little messy, her originally pretty face had several wounds, there was an obvious bruise on her left eyebrow, and there were several bloodstains oozing out of blood on her right cheek. The girl looked rather embarrassed, but upon closer inspection, the pair of eyes under the bangs revealed a firmness and composure that did not match her age. Xingyun raised her hand to wipe the blood on her face, thinking that this skin is really delicate. This is not her face, she is not so young, nor so smooth and delicate skin, but now she is her. Obviously one moment she died with the powerful monster in order to protect the 3rd security base behind her, and the next moment she appeared in a toilet, and more importantly, she was still lying on the ground surrounded by 3 girls of the same age. Being bullied, his right hand was stomped hard by a foot. Before she could think about her situation, Xingyun subconsciously started to fight back. Only when he moved his hand did he realize that this was not his body, that he had neither his original physical fitness nor the muscle memory engraved in his bones, so he was rather weak. However, Xingyun was just stunned for a moment and then came to her senses. It doesn't matter if her physical fitness can't keep up, at least her skills are still there, and the weak points of the human body are also imprinted in her mind. The 3 girls were just ordinary high school students. They were subdued by Xingyun after a few moments. Apart from the pain all over the body, she mercilessly removed their arms. Leaving the 3 of them in the corner of the toilet and not letting them go, Xingyun had time to observe her current situation and sort out the memories that suddenly flooded into her mind. Xingyun remembered the moment she died, and a voice suddenly appeared in her mind. It asked, "Do you want to live? Isn't this nonsense? Who wants to die if they can live?" What's more, Xingyun, who lives in the late stage of the catastrophe, has seen too many deaths since she was a child. She knows very well how difficult it is to survive. Moreover, she had promised her adoptive father that she would definitely live well and live with his share. Unfortunately, she broke her promise in the end. For the lives of millions of ordinary people behind her, she made the same choice as her adoptive father. Xingyun doesn't regret her original choice, but there is a chance to live in front of her, and she also doesn't want to miss it. After answering affirmatively, she appeared here. At that time, the voice seemed to tell her that only after completing this assessment task could she continue to survive. And her mission is to fulfill the original owner Su Shui's wish to let her parents live in peace, and to let the person who killed her get the punishment they deserve. After sorting through Su Shui's memory, Xing Yun found that it is not only the current memory, but also some things that will happen in the future. From Su Shui's memory, Xing Yun knew that this was a very beautiful planet, very similar to her mother planet before the catastrophe, prosperous and full of vitality. But the memory of the future told her that all this is only temporary, and this beautiful planet is now facing a huge crisis. 2 days later, a sudden blizzard would send the planet known as Aquamarine into its 5th ice age. Most of the entire world is covered with ice and snow, and the extreme cold has caused the death of most of the life on the planet. It's like the end is coming. The time Xing Yun is currently in is very delicate. The omen of crisis has already begun. Recently, meteorological disasters on the planet have occurred from time to time, but they have not attracted enough attention. But in just 2 days, before everyone could react, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, first came a hurricane and a tsunami, and then a cold wave swept the earth. After a week-long snowstorm, most of the planet was in a very short time. Time has entered the Ice Age. After Xing Yun carefully sorted out all the original owner's memories, she only thought about it for less than 2 minutes before deciding what to do next. She ignored the 3 girls in the corner who were staring at her angrily, picked up the mobile phone from the ground that had been taken by one of the girls before, and decisively dialed the previous call to the police. Xing Yun put her phone on the edge of the pool, slowly turned on the faucet, and started washing her hands. She also had several bruises on her hand, and the back of her right hand was even torn, with blood beads oozing out. After washing her hands, Xing Yun washed her face again, then picked up the phone and turned to the 3 girls in the corner. As Xing Yun approached step by step, the girls became obviously nervous. The girl in the middle widened her eyes and shouted sternly, "You, what do you want to do?" Her arms were removed from both hands, and her body was sore and numb several times, and she couldn't exert herself. She didn't know why Su Shui, who had been bullied by them all the time and never dared to say a word, suddenly seemed to be a different person. Not only did she resist, but she moved quickly and took off their arms in a few seconds. They called for help, but they deliberately brought Su Shui to this relatively remote toilet in gym class, just because they were afraid that other people would pass by. Naturally, their cries for help would not be heard. Xing Yun's expression didn't change. She stopped less than a meter away from the 3 of them, and then looked up and down at the 3 of them. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and she turned on the camera of her mobile phone to face them, and asked, "Is it fun to bully people? You're a bitch." The right seemed to be irritated. She forgot how Xing Yun had easily countered them and took off their arms before. She opened her mouth and habitually started cursing. Xing Yun took a step forward, reached out and pinched her chin in a lightning-fast manner, her hand pressed hard, and with a soft click, she easily removed the girl's chin, and the pain caused her tears to fall out again. "Since you can't speak well, don't speak for the time being." Xing Yun's understated tone and neat movements completely stunned the 3 of them. They felt that their bodies were hurting even more. The memory of Xing Yun unhesitatingly removed their arms from before resurfaced again, which finally made them look terrified. "Do you feel a sense of accomplishment? You base your pleasure on bullying your peers who are weaker than you and don't like it, and feel that you are very powerful? Are you proud of yourself?" Xing Yun searched her memory and found that the original owner was bullied quite inexplicably, because the male who led the girl named El Yuni's crush had spoken to the original owner several times, and she was targeted like this. And the original owner was timid and cowardly, and didn't even dare to tell his teachers and parents, so after being bullied for the first time, there was a second time, a third time. She can't understand the brain circuits of these people at all. In her original planet, even if everyone fights and bullies, they are all for survival resources, in order to live better, never for such inexplicable reasons. Seeing the three people who were huddled together with tears in their eyes, obviously too scared to speak by her, Xingyun suddenly felt a little dull. In her childhood education, her adoptive father always told her that the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility, and the real strong will not base their sense of achievement on bullying weaker people. She really doesn't understand what it means to bully people like this, but it seems that it is the nature of some people to bully the good and fear the evil. Xingyun has no intention of exploring these people's thoughts, nor does she plan to stay with them any longer. She has taught them a lesson before. Although she is measured, she is not light. More importantly, the end of the world is coming, and she has no time to entangle with them too much. Xingyun twitched the corners of her mouth, turned off the camera of her phone, put the phone in her handbag, stretched out her hands and pinched Luni's left arm, and amidst her screaming questioning voice, a crisp sound of bones colliding. The left arm was reset. Immediately after, Xingyun did the same thing and reset everyone else's arms. The three of Luni tried to move their arms and found that there was no other problem except for some pain, and they were all fine. But at this time, they didn't dare to speak without permission, for fear that the other party would drop their chin if they disagreed. When Xingyun restored the girl's chin, they still didn't dare to leave, they just stared at Xingyun with fear and vigilance. Xingyun ignored them, but took out her phone again, flipped through it, deleted some contents, then threw the phone at Luni and turned to leave. Until Xingyun opened the door to the toilet and her figure disappeared completely, the three of them breathed a sigh of relief. Sister Lu, this Jian. The girl who spoke remembered the feeling of having her chin removed just now, and swallowed the words that should have been scolded. Why does this person look like a ghost, suddenly changed into a person? How dare you do this to us? Yes, I must call back and tell my parents. My body still hurts. Another girl pulled off her shirt and wanted to see where she was hurt, but found that the skin where she hurt was fair and smooth, with no bruises at all. How is that possible? She clearly hit me here. It hurts so much. How can there be no traces? The three of them immediately checked their bodies, but found that many places on their bodies were particularly painful, but they couldn't find a single bruise, and they couldn't see any injuries at all. How is this going? Obviously, the other party beat them here, so their pain can't be fake. But why is there no trace at all? In this way, even if they go back and file a complaint, the parents and teachers will not necessarily believe it. By the way, she seems to have filmed a video just now. At that time, we all had our arms removed by her. This is the evidence. They never thought that it was because they bullied people first that they would provoke resistance. After the initial fear faded, they would only feel more angry and want to regain their place and make the other party pay the price. Luni hurriedly turned on her phone and looked through it, but she couldn't find the video at all, and even some of her previous videos of bullying others were completely deleted. Just when she was about to curse, the phone suddenly rang, and a completely unfamiliar number was displayed on the screen. Luni frowned and hung up. After a while, the phone rang again, and Luni continued to hang up. It wasn't until the phone rang for the third time that Luni finally clicked on it and shouted impatiently, "Who is it?" There was silence on the side of the phone, and then a low male voice came, "Hello, I'm Pei Yuchang from the Jinan City Criminal Police Detachment. Did you call the police before? What's the alarm?" "I didn't." Luni was stunned. She suddenly remembered that after they were beaten, Su Shui did call the police with her cell phone, as if saying that someone was going to come to their school for revenge, and he did mention Pei or something. That guy wouldn't use her cell phone to call the fake police to harm her, would he? Luni quickly explained, "No, no. Uncle Policeman, it wasn't me who called the police, but someone else called me with my cell phone." "Who?" "That person's name is Su Shui, I don't know what she means, When Pei Yuchang hung up the phone, the team members around him saw that the detachment leader who finished the call was obviously not very good, and asked curiously, "Captain, What did the caller say? Just now, the leader of the detachment was taking them to a meeting in the office to make a summary of the cases uncovered during this period. Suddenly, he received a call from the command center, saying that someone called the police and said that the gangster deliberately took revenge on the leader's daughter. Once they heard the news, how could they still sit still? Naturally, he urged the detachment leader to come over quickly to see which ate the gall of a bear and a leopard and dared to attack their detachment leader's daughter. The team members are gearing up one by one, and they have to let the other party take a good look at their greatness. Pei Yuchang shook his head and did not speak. The phone call made him suspicious of the alarm information. It was actually someone else's cell phone that called the police, and the girl who answered the phone said that they were students of Huayang Middle School's high school. Could it be that the other party reported false police? Pei Yuchang didn't dare to rashly conclude that what the caller said was false, and he wasn't sure that what the girl said must be true, and they had to call the police when they received a call from the police. Now that the time was not far from what the caller said, he didn't dare to take the risk. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Pei Yuchang's mind. Pei Yuchang tugged at the collar and ordered, "Speed up, when you get there, immediately observe whether there are any men in their 30s that are mentioned in the alarm information. We will use the most find the suspect as soon as possible, try not to disturb the people around you, and especially try to protect the safety of the students." Yes. Xingyun didn't know what happened after she left the toilet. The original owner originally had a mobile phone, but it was trampled by Luni and the others last time, and she hadn't replaced it with a new one. What Xingyun didn't even know was that all her actions were faithfully recorded. The Assessment Department of the Spiritual Affairs Department of the Time and Space Plane Administration. This is a black space. There are more than a dozen light screens floating on one side of the space. Each light screen plays a different picture. There is a long table not far from the light screen. Two young people in grey uniforms are sitting behind the table, and a splendid galaxy flows under their feet. One of them, with Erlang's legs crossed, with a pair of peach blossom eyes, and a man with a languid breath all over his body, poked the man beside him with his hand, pointed to one of the light screens, and said with great interest, "Look at this." This man, after subduing the person who bullied her, the second action was to run and call the police to tell the police what would happen in 15 minutes and ask them to save the person. What do you think she wants to do? Oh, she just let it go after those few people who bullied the client left. This is too much, isn't it? What do you think? The man who was poked had clear eyebrows and a gentle temperament, and his long and narrow eyes squinted at each other. You don't care what she thinks, she can become a new tasker if she passes the assessment. Can't you just erase her memory and reincarnate on the plane where she was originally? Are you busy? Hey, that's not what she said. I think her behavior is different from the others. I'm a little curious, aren't you? Not curious. The peach-blossomed man rolled his eyes. He felt a sense of suaveness when he did such an action, and people couldn't help but set their eyes on him. Unfortunately, there is no third person here to appreciate it, and the man beside him didn't even give him a peripheral vision. Although the other party didn't cooperate, the peachy man was still in high spirits. Based on my years of experience, I guess she wanted to make others believe her words through this, and then act as a prophet to tell them what will happen next. As for letting go of those people, he rubbed his chin in a subtle tone. I think she thought that anyway, the end of the world is coming, and they won't necessarily live to the end, so they won't get their hands dirty. Hey, Simon, do you think my speculation is reasonable? Sinan didn't give him a glance, but opened his personal panel to operate something. The neglected peachy man rolled his eyes again and continued, does she want to use this method to convince other people to believe in her, and then save more people? I have only seen doomsday posts from hidden identities to remind them. I haven't seen someone else take the initiative to send it to the door. Is this a brain pump or a saint? He carefully looked at the picture on the light screen, and clicked his tongue twice. I just don't know if this saint is a real saint or a fake saint. Doesn't she think about the consequences of her words? So good. The man with peach blossom eyes watched Xing Yun walk all the way to the teacher's office, suddenly rolled his eyes, turned his head and asked, "Sinan, do you want to take a bet with me?" Sinan's finger paused for a moment, and gave him a look like charity. "What are you betting on? How about a bet on whether this person can pass the test?" "Xinle, are you all boring?" "Cut, you are boring." Sinan ignored the other party. Anyway, this guy Xinle always wanted to come out, he was used to it. And if it wasn't for him this time around, why would you sit here with him to watch the newcomer assessment? In fact, there is no need for them to do anything here. The assessment department has a special system program to monitor the assessment process, and they are just a display. Just a waste of time. Moreover, that sissy is the most stubborn, and has a good relationship with the head of the spiritual affairs department. Sinan thinks that this may not be over, and when they finish this assessment, they still don't know what will be waiting for them. Seeing that Sinan didn't speak, Xinle continued to focus on the light screen where Xing Yun was, wondering what she was going to do next. At this time, Xing Yun had absolutely no idea that someone was observing and discussing her from the perspective of God. According to the original owner's memory, she found the head teacher Bai's office and wanted to ask for leave to go home. When teacher Bai saw Xing Yun with obvious injuries on her face, she probably understood what happened. She must have been bullied again. It's not that she didn't talk to Su Shui before, but Su Shui didn't admit that she was beaten, so it was useless to persuade her. Even if she had a suspect and no evidence, she didn't know what to do. Regarding Xing Yun's request for leave, teacher Bai approved it without saying anything. Handing the leave application to Xing Yun for signature, teacher Bai sighed, "Su Shui, you have to know that for some things, your cowardice can only be infinite connivance. Teacher hopes that one day you will be brave enough to say come out." Xing Yun's hand to sign the sign paused, she raised her head, looked into the other's eyes, and asked seriously, "What about after you say it?" "What?" Seeing the student who had always been taciturn suddenly look at him and ask such a question, teacher Bai was stunned. "After you say it, what are you going to do?" I will inform their parents, and then I will talk to them well, and then I'll be bullied even worse where you can't see it." Xing Yun interrupted teacher Bai without hesitation, causing her to not know what to say for a while. "It's not like that, it's... Teacher, if you don't say something, you just need to put your hope and sense of security on others. In the end, you may only get more disappointment or even despair." Putting the signed leave request form on the table, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Xing Yun turned around and walked out of the office, stopped when she reached the door, turned her head and said, "By the way, the weather will be relatively different these days." "Abnormal, teacher, you can prepare more things at home." Looking at the back of Xing Yun leaving, teacher Bai didn't come back to his senses for a while. She was actually stunned by the aura of a student, and she was usually a student with a very low sense of introversion. As for Xing Yun's last words, she didn't take it to heart. "I was just thinking about whether my students were stimulated, so my personality changed a bit." As soon as Xing Yun left the office, she went downstairs when she heard the bell for the end of get out of class. There was a faint noise in the distance. It was the end of the junior high school get out of class, and the senior high school had evening self-study. Most of the students lived on campus. Xing Yun turned her head and looked out the window. Under the building of the junior high school, students in green and white school uniforms filed out. They were in groups of 3 and 5, chatting and laughing, and went out lively. "The time is almost up. As long as the police here are not so incompetent, then the person should have been caught by now." Xing Yun went back to the classroom to pack her school bags, and went straight out of the school without going back to the dormitory to get her things. There were also some junior high school students on the road. It was quite obvious that Xing Yun in blue and white school uniform was walking among them. From time to time, junior high school students secretly looked at Xing Yun. The school entrance was as noisy as usual. When Xingyun passed a few small booths, she heard the police who appeared before their discussion, all guessing who they were arresting, and some people swore that they saw the man with a knife in his hand. It looks like people should have caught it. Xingyun glanced at the ants who were discussing together, and strode past them to leave. No one knows what would have happened at this moment. Xingyun stood on the crowded bus, feeling the swaying bus and the thrust coming from all directions. Suddenly there was an extremely unreal feeling. This is really not the planet she is on. People here are running around for life, and although they work hard, they will not worry about their lives. But all this is superficial, and disasters will sweep the world at an unexpected speed. Thinking of what she was going to do later, Xingyun didn't know how much she could play, but as someone who had experienced the end of the world, she clearly knew what kind of despair it was. Although the forms of disasters are different, what is the difference in essence? This is the doomsday for all civilizations and creatures. Xingyun felt that she should do something. The original owner's home was in an old community, with a stairwell, and he lived on the 5th floor. Xingyun took out the key and opened the door. There was no one at home. Sue's father and Sue's mother should get off work at this time, and may still be on their way home. According to her memory, Xingyun walked into the original owner's room and turned on the computer in the original owner's room. Although the computer was bought a few years ago, it is not a very good brand, and its performance is relatively poor, but it is completely fine to just open the web and search for things. Although Xingyun has the memory of the original owner, when the cold wave came, the original owner, like most people, didn't know much about many things, and she didn't know why there was this cold wave. Evacuate the city. And most of the time later, he stayed in the newly established security base, and he didn't know much about many things, so the original owner's memory had limited information for Xingyun. In the information age, a lot of news can be obtained from the internet. There is a lot of information on the internet about recent meteorological disasters around the world, but because the places where these meteorological disasters occur are too scattered, and most of them occur abroad, not every event will be pushed as news, so it has not caused everyone pays enough attention. Most of the people just posted some information about their prayers and wishes on the internet, and sighed with emotion, and some people said that they would organize donations or something. Although some people think that the frequent meteorological disasters are a bit strange, most people are just joking, and not many people care. Xingyun felt that this was only superficial. With so many disasters happening in a concentrated manner, is it true that none of the governments have noticed? The technological civilization of this planet is not low, and there are more than 1,000 artificial satellites orbiting the planet. Xingyun does not believe that they have not found abnormal weather. Assuming her guess is true, why is there no rumors on the internet? There is only one reason: some messages are blocked. Why block it? Xingyun knows that the government sometimes hides many things from the public in order to maintain social stability and its own power and interests, and the public will only know what they can know. So, is her guess true? Xingyun has no way of knowing, but for her, knowing and hiding is better than not knowing anything. At least in this way, her later thoughts can be carried out more smoothly. 10 minutes later, Xingyun heard footsteps and voices coming from outside the door of the room. She pushed open the door and walked out to see that Sue's father and Sue's mother were standing in the living room talking. Mother Sue was very surprised when her daughter, who was supposed to be at school, appeared at home. "Xioxiu, why did you go home? Today is school holiday? You came back just in time. What did we buy? I was thinking of waiting for you to come back tomorrow night for you, but you... What's the matter with the injury on your face?" Mother Sue got closer, just in time to see the wound on Xingyun's face. "Xioxiu, were you beaten at school? Who beat you?" Mother Sue hurriedly took Xingyun's hand and sat on the sofa. "Old Sue, come and see, our child was beaten. Look at the injury on the face." Father Sue was also shocked. He carefully looked at the wound on Xingyun's face, and asked Mother Sue to get some medicine. He asked solemnly, Zioxu, don't be afraid, tell Dad, who hit you? The original owner was unwilling to tell her family what happened at the school, and she lived at the school most of the time, so her parents had no idea that she was bullied at school. And Xingyun forgot about the injury on her face early in the morning, because she didn't think it was anything at all, and in her opinion, it wasn't an injury. However, in the face of Sue's father and Sue's mother's undisguised concern, Xingyun tilted her head uncomfortably. Although there are memories of the original owner, but when she suddenly faced the original owner's parents, Xingyun really couldn't immediately treat them as relatives. Xingyun was raised by her adoptive father and her teammates. She no longer remembers what her biological parents looked like. However, in such a catastrophe of the end of the world, there are countless children who have been abandoned or lost their parents. She is lucky to be picked up and adopted by her adoptive father, so she can survive smoothly. Xingyun lowered her eyes slightly and replied in a low voice, "It's okay, I accidentally fell." "Where did you accidentally fall?" "It was obviously beaten." Xingyun rubbed her forehead. Facing the original owner's parents, especially such concerns, she was really uncomfortable. She took a deep breath and simply nodded, "Well, they were beaten, but it was just a small dispute, but I beat him back. And they were hurt much more than me. Enough for them to be in pain for several days. And even if you go to the hospital, you won't be able to detect the injury." Call back?" Father Sue opened his mouth, not believing what his daughter said. "What kind of temperament does your daughter know? If someone beats you, can you beat him back?" Seeing Father Sue's expression of disbelief, Xingyun said again, "Really, I even took off their arms. I don't believe it anymore, okay?" But after saying this, Father Sue felt relieved. "When my daughter came home last Saturday night, she seemed to be more dull than before. They asked her what happened without saying anything, and just locked herself in the room by herself. Although I came back with an injury today, but at least I am willing to talk, maybe things are really not that serious." At this time, Mother Sue brought a pot of hot water over with safflower oil in her hand. "Put a hot towel on first." Xingyun really thought it was nothing, but Mother Sue's eyes turned red, and Xingyun could only surrender. Father Sue asked Xingyun some more questions, but they all made Xingyun vague. It's almost the end of the world, in Xingyun's eyes, these are all irrelevant things. When Mother Sue helped Xingyun with the medicine and was about to cook, Xingyun stopped her, "Mom." After shouting for the first time, the following words will be smoother. Xingyun looked at Father Sue again, "Dad, I have something to tell you. Is there anything more urgent than eating? Let's talk after eating." Although Mother Sue said so, she still sat next to Father Sue. Looking at Sue's father and Sue's mother who were puzzled in front of her, Xingyun pondered for a moment, thinking about how to tell them about this doomsday catastrophe. Before the cold wave came, it rained heavily in Jinan City, and it was getting heavier and heavier. It seemed that there was a tendency to form a very heavy rainstorm, and the original owner was in the school at that time. That day was Saturday. Although the Education Bureau stipulates that schools cannot make up classes on weekends, many schools will make up classes privately, especially high school students, who basically have classes on Saturdays. That day, the Meteorological Bureau issued an emergency notice of 3 stops, and Huayang Middle School naturally also had a holiday. Because the original owner's cell phone was broken, Father Sue had to call the head teacher, Teacher Bai, and let the original owner wait for him to pick her up at school. But at that time, the original owner had been bullied for a long time, and his mental state was a bit wrong, and he was a little annoying to Father Sue who took care of him too much, so he left without waiting for Father Sue. Unexpectedly, after the original owner finally got home, Father Sue never came back. At that time, it was already pouring rain outside, and it looked like it was about to become a flood, but when I called Father Sue again, no one answered. Father Sue never came back. The temperature dropped sharply at night, the snow was wild outside, and a sudden snowstorm swept over half of the planet. The original owner and Mother Su were trapped in the house for a week. Fortunately, I had a certain amount of food at home, so I could barely survive a week. When the blizzard stopped, it was already a world of ice and snow. Afterwards, a team came to search and rescue the survivors. The original owner and Mother Su followed them out of Jinan City and headed to the south. In the days that followed, the original owner and Mother Su depended on each other, and in the end, both of them lost their lives for some reason. So the original owner always blamed himself very much, believing that he killed Father Su, and Mother Su died to protect her. So her wish is to let her parents survive this catastrophe, her family to spend this apocalypse peacefully, and to let the person who killed her get the retribution they deserve. It's easy to say it's easy, and it's hard to say it. To put it simply, because she has a lot of memories about the future, she can avoid many dangerous places in advance. But this is not like the great evolutionary change on her planet, where the individual's physique is mutated, and the individual can have enough strength to fight against those mutated creatures, and as long as he has enough ability, he can survive. What they are now facing is the meteorological change of the entire planet. The change is too fast, and it is impossible to resist it with individual strength alone. It can even be said that the entire country has no complete solution. In the face of nature's revenge, human beings are powerless. The only thing they can do is to escape from the place where the disaster happened. But this disaster has spread all over the world, where is it absolutely safe? So Xingyun didn't plan to hide from Su's father and Su's mother. She wanted them to believe what she said, and then prepare in advance with her to survive this catastrophe as much as possible. Seeing Xingyun's expression getting more and more serious, Su's father and Su's mother became nervous as well. They looked at each other, and they all saw worry in each other's eyes. "Dad, Mom, what I'm going to say next is very important. I hope you won't be surprised or suspicious after listening to it. Xiaoxiu, tell me, my parents will definitely believe you." Xingyun told Father Su and Mother Su about the weather changes that would happen in the next few days, and as Xingyun told the story, the expressions on Mother Su's face also changed. Father Su opened his mouth several times to say something, but he finally held it back, but his expression looked weird. After Xingyun finished speaking, Su's father and Su's mother didn't know what to say for a while, and the living room fell into a strange silence. Cough, Father Su coughed twice, breaking the silence in the room, and said hesitantly, Xiaoxiu, it's not that your parents don't believe you, but that what you said is too unbelievable. What floods and snowstorms, what climatic changes, and what the fifth ice age? Do you think this is a doomsday disaster blockbuster? Although Mother Su didn't say anything, she knew from her expression that she didn't quite believe what her daughter said. Say yes, you must believe me? Xingyun was a little speechless, but she was not surprised by this result. It would be strange if they really believed what she said so directly. Xingyun borrowed a mobile phone from Father Su, opened the browser, typed in a few words to search, and then handed it to Father Su. Dad, in fact, the prelude to this disaster has already begun. You can see that the various meteorological disasters that have occurred around the world during this period are obviously more frequent and larger than in previous years. In fact, some meteorological experts have expressed concerns about these phenomena. But not enough attention has been paid. Father Su took the phone, and Mother Su also put her head together to look through it with Father Su. Indeed, this month, meteorological disasters have occurred frequently around the world, such as earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, floods, and hail. I don't think it's true just by looking at it, but it's really shocking to see it together. Father Su's brows twitched. This is indeed a bit wrong, but just because of this, he is still a little skeptical about the end of the world due to climate change. Xiaoxiu, it seems that it is not peaceful, but if it is really like what you said, it will enter the Ice Age in just a few days, which is too exaggerated. If this is the case, there are so many in the world. Meteorological experts, UU reading www.uugonshu.com should have discovered something in advance, and the national government will also have some reactions. But you see that there is nothing in this calm situation. Are you thinking too much? Father So began to wonder if his daughter's nonsense had something to do with today's injury. Xing Yun looked at Su's father fixedly, analyzed and deduced several times in her mind, and finally said, "What if I say that I have experienced these things myself?" What do you mean?" Looking at Father Su's wide eyes, Xing Yun calmly spoke out some of the future events in the original owner's memory. The reason why Xing Yun told them part of the future was not only to make them believe her words and prepare for the coming Ice Age together, but also because the personalities of her and the original owner Su Shui were too far apart. It is impossible to completely imitate the character of the original owner. If there is no reasonable explanation, this will easily arouse the suspicion of Su's parents and Su's mother. Xing Yun doesn't want to make extra troubles. After all, one of her tasks is to protect them. But if it is Su Shui who has experienced the next Ice Age for several years, in such an extreme living environment, the change of character is inevitable. As Xing Yun told the story, the expressions on Su's father and Su's mother's face became more and more shocked. When she finished speaking, she didn't know what to do for a while. This is even more incredible than what she said about the end of the glacier. I want to say that this is what she imagined, not true. But what Xing Yun described was too real and detailed, just like what she had experienced firsthand. And they themselves knew that if such a thing really happened, they must have acted like that. Could it be that everything your daughter said is true? She was reborn from a few years later? Seeing that Su's father and Su's mother's expression was a little loose, Xing Yun continued, "Dad, Mom, do you think I will lie to you about such an important matter? What good will it be for me to lie to you like this? If it is fake, wasn't it torn down in 2 days? Yes, the child's father, our family Zioxu has never lied. I think what she said should be true." Mother Su's heart had already begun to favor Xing Yun. She said to Father Su, "Besides such a big thing, if it's fake, it won't be worn in a few days? And you don't realize that your daughter is really different from before." Father Su actually believed it a little bit, because he found out from the beginning that his daughter's expression and temperament had changed greatly, and the tone of speaking with them was also different from before. If it wasn't for something very exciting, how could a person undergo such an earth-shaking change? Mother Su hesitated for a while, then hesitantly said, "Since what Zioxu said is true, then shall we tell other people quickly?" According to her daughter, this disaster swept the world, and countless lives were lost in the entire water blue star. Since they knew in advance, it seems a little too unconscionable to only care about their own escape and ignore other people. Mother Su is a kind-hearted woman, and she really couldn't do it when she watched so many people die. Tell other people? How? Do you think they will believe it? Father Su disagreed. If it wasn't for her daughter telling them so much and telling them such a big secret, they wouldn't believe what she said so quickly. Moreover, Father Su has seen all kinds of people over the years. Knowing how weak the trust in society is now, he often speculates on others with the greatest malice. Sometimes their kindness doesn't necessarily bring good rewards in exchange. Father Su sat up straight, looked at Mother Su and said sternly, "I can make it clear here, about our daughter, we have to rot in our stomachs, and we can't say a word. No one can reveal it. You have to know that this is a matter of our daughter's life. The soul comes back from the future and knows what will happen in the future. What an incredible thing it is." Father Su was worried that if someone else found out, his daughter would be caught and sliced for experiments, or would be monitored, which is not what he wanted to see. Mother Su, who was warned by Father Su, was a little aggrieved. It was about her daughter. Of course, she would not talk about it nonsense. Although he knew that Father Su was worried about his daughter and didn't really scold him, Mother Su couldn't help but read. "I didn't say anything about Zioxu, don't you wrong me. I think we can remind other people properly. Isn't the internet very developed now? We can anonymously post this on the internet? What? Seeing Sue's mother's eyes turning red again, Sue's father frowned slightly, he coughed uncomfortably, glanced at Xingyun secretly, and whispered to Sue's mother, I didn't say anything to you, why are you crying? Xiaoxiu is still here. Mother Su wiped away her tears and said nothing. Okay, my fault is that I didn't say it clearly. I mean, not many people will believe this matter, but it will put our daughter in danger. Do you want my daughter to be arrested? Get up and be watched. Of course not. Mother Su was anxious. If she had to choose between others and her daughter, she would of course choose her own. I was thinking, in the best of my ability, without exposing Xiaoxiu to inform some people, no matter how many people will believe, at least we have done what we can do, can save one is one, do nothing my conscience uneasy. That's okay, but you have to consider more things. Father Su explained patiently, it's right to want to save people, but there are still many hidden dangers in online notifications. One is that it is easy to be discovered, and the other is that there is no what crime is it about spreading rumors on the internet? Too many retweets will be sentenced, and the police will say that we are spreading rumors, causing social panic, and what if we are shut down? It's just a day or two, it won't be so fast. It's hard to say such a thing. Seeing that Mother Su hesitated, Father Su continued, although it is not easy to inform everyone, our relatives and friends can remind them and spread it out through them. Although the speed may be slower, it is safe. But you're thoughtful. Seeing that Sue's father and Sue's mother changed from disbelief at the beginning to discussing how to tell relatives and friends, what kind of evacuation supplies should be prepared, and the dinner they had promised was thrown into the sky long ago, Xingyun didn't know what to say for a while. What? It seems like nothing happened to her? Just then, the doorbell rang suddenly. Sue's father and Sue's mother stopped discussing and looked at the door together. Who is coming at this mealtime? As soon as Father Su stood up, he saw Xingyun get up faster than him. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com directly went over them to open the door. Father Su and Mother Su looked at each other and followed. The door opened, and a middle-aged man in a police uniform stood at the door. The man has sword brows and tight-red eyes, a straight nose and thin lips, and his brows are full of awe-inspiring righteousness. The skin is bronze, and a police uniform complements the other person's posture. Why did the police come to the door? Seeing the policeman's first glance, Sue's father and Sue's mother's first reaction was, could it be that his daughter's affairs have been exposed? Before the other party could explain his intentions, Father Su grabbed Xingyun's arm in front of him, pulled her behind him, and stepped forward to block her. And Mother Su held Xingyun's hand from behind. She moved slightly forward, and also hid Xingyun behind her in a protective attitude. The series of actions of the two made Pei Yucheng at the door stunned. He blinked and looked down at his clothes subconsciously. That's right, he's wearing a police uniform. Why does he feel like a bad guy who comes to ask for debts? Obviously everyone said he looked very upright. At first glance, he is a good man. Father Su's eyes flickered, he swallowed and tried to straighten his body, with a formulaic smile on his face. Comrade police officer, what's the matter with you? Pei Yucheng carefully observed the family. The attitude of the parents towards them was obviously wrong, and there was a hint of vigilance and precaution in their eyes. There is a situation. Pei Yucheng felt that he had come right this time. He glanced at Xingyun, who was blocked by Sue's father and Sue's mother, and first took out his criminal police card and showed them a look, verified his identity as a criminal police officer, and then asked gently, "This is Su Shuet. Classmate's house?" "Ah. Yes, that's right." Father Su tried his best to make himself look less nervous, but in Pei Yucheng's eyes, this was obviously trying to cover up. "Then you should be Su Shue's father." "Yes. That's right." Pei Yucheng showed a friendly smile on his face, Today Su Shui called the police and provided us with a very important clue, allowing us to avoid a vicious wounding incident. Su Shui asked some specific matters, and at the same time came to express his gratitude to Su Shui. Father Su was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect the police to come to the door and say this. He looked back at Xingyun, who nodded. Only then did Father Su breathe a sigh of relief, and Mother Su glared at Xingyun. Why didn't you tell us about this? It surprised us. Seeing that the other party didn't find him because of his daughter's secret, Father Su felt a lot more relaxed and his expression became much more natural. After a few words of greetings, he greeted Pei Yucheng to enter the house. After entering the room, Pei Yucheng proposed to speak to Xingyun alone, but Father Su hesitated. Although it was said that the policeman was here on business, Father Su was still a little uneasy about asking him to question his daughter alone. Dad, it's okay, just a few words. Seeing Xingyun's insistence, Father Su could only agree in the end. He watched Xingyun lead Pei Yucheng to the balcony and closed the glass door. He sat on the sofa and looked over there from time to time. Pei Yucheng glanced at Father Su, who was staring at them, and smiled at Xingyun. He glanced at the wound on Xingyun's face, remembered some things he heard from her head teacher, and tried to make his voice as approachable as possible, so as not to frighten the girl in front of him. What's with the injury on your face? Did someone bully you at school? No. I heard your teacher say. Officer Pei, you came to me today to ask me this, right? Pei Yucheng, who was interrupted by Xingyun, choked up. Wasn't he afraid of scaring people and wanting to repeat the cycle? But since she said so, then Pei Yucheng asked directly, you called the police call today that someone in Huayang Middle School had committed a murder. That's right. Pei Yucheng was startled by Xingyun's cheerfulness, he thought the other party would not admit it. In this way, the appearance of the other party and her teacher's description are a bit different. So Pei Yucheng didn't beat around the bush. We did catch someone, but in fact he didn't want to take revenge on my daughter. Why did you say that on purpose? At that time, Pei Yucheng and a group of people rushed to the gate of Huayang Middle School with the fastest speed, and did not find any abnormality at first. But not long after, the bell of the end of get out of class came from Huayang Middle School, and Pei Yucheng also found a man who was behaving differently from ordinary people. The man, who was in his 30s, seemed to have something wrapped in his coat, and walked all the way to the gate of Huayang Middle School. And when he saw several police officers nearby, he was obviously nervous. The man hesitated for a while, and finally seemed to be planning to leave. Seeing this, Pei Yucheng immediately walked towards him, and the man saw the police coming, obviously guilty, turned around and ran forward. Seeing this, Pei Yucheng immediately chased after him and subdued him with the other police officers. Later, Pei Yucheng discovered that the other party's clothes were actually a machete wrapped in layers of cloth. Pei Yucheng broke out in a cold sweat. It was time for the students to leave school. If they didn't come, then this man would slash at a group of students who didn't have much self-defense ability with a machete. The consequences would be unimaginable. Pei Yucheng asked others to take the person back for interrogation, while he entered the school. Instead of looking for his daughter, who was in the first year of junior high at Huayang Middle School, he wanted to find Su Shui, whom Luni mentioned at the time. But what Pei Yucheng didn't expect was that the other party actually asked for leave to go home, and the time was not long ago, which means that he probably passed by the other party. Pei Yucheng learned some basic information about Su Shui from the head teacher, and also got the address of her home, and then went back to the bureau first, wanting to see the results of the interrogation. It didn't take long for the other party to confess everything, and the result of the interrogation was beyond Pei Yucheng's expectations. The man didn't come to Huayang Middle School because he wanted revenge on him at all. He didn't even know Pei Yucheng. And his motive for killing people was just because he lost his job not long ago, his wife ran away with someone again, and his life was not going his way, so he wanted to take revenge on the society, and the target he chose was this group of middle school students. Hearing this reason, the police officer who was interrogating at that time almost beat the other party directly. It's just scum. He actually reached out to students with no social experience and no ability to protect themselves. Knowing the other party's purpose and motive, Pei Yucheng focused his attention on the person who called the police. Thinking about it now, the girl named Su Shui had a lot of doubts. The perpetrator came up with an impromptu intention today, and he didn't make any preparations before, so how did she know in advance? More importantly, why did the other party deliberately say that it was to retaliate against his daughter when he called the police? It was as if he was deliberately leading him over. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Pei Yucheng was vaguely aware of the unusualness. He didn't bring anyone else and drove directly to the door according to the address he got from the head teacher. In the face of Pei Yucheng's question, Xingyun did not answer directly, but changed the topic. If I hadn't made that call, then at the gate of Huayang Middle School today, 3 people would have died and a dozen others had been injured to varying degrees, and your daughter. Xingyun looked up at Pei Yucheng's eyes. Your daughter will be seriously injured because she went to save her classmates. Pei Yucheng's pupil shrank, his eyes fixed on Xingyun, not letting go of any subtle expressions on her face. The sun was about to go down, and the fiery red sunset shone on Xingyun's face, which had not yet fully recovered from her injuries, giving her originally delicate face a strange and coquettish feeling. How on earth did you know that? Pei Yucheng's tone was solemn, even involuntarily with a hint of oppression, somewhat aggressive. This is what he is most puzzled about. Where did this child get the news? You know, he asked the teacher at the school. She stayed at the school all week. No strange people came to her, nor did she have any strange behavior. She even heard from the teacher that she recently encountered school bullying. Xingyun didn't speak, but turned her head to look in the direction where the sun was setting. The twilight was dim, the setting sun was like blood, and the high-rise buildings in the city seemed to be shrouded in a layer of blood. Officer Pei, what I'm going to say next is very important, but you have to promise me that after I'm done talking, you don't ask me where I heard it, and you can't reveal my story to anyone who knows. The corners of Pei Yucheng's mouth twitched, and he didn't answer his question. However, after working as a criminal police officer for so many years, it is not that he has not encountered such a case. Most of them are afraid of retaliation for leaking information. Therefore, after pondering for a moment, Pei Yucheng said carefully, "Don't worry, our police will definitely protect the privacy of the police, and will never leak your personal information. No, I mean, only you know about me, and I will only tell you." Pei Yucheng frowned, looking at the cautious attitude of the girl in front of him. After thinking for a moment, he agreed. "Okay, I promise you that I will never reveal your affairs to ensure your privacy and safety. Now, you can always say it, right? Do you believe in the end of the world?" What? The end of the world? Pei Yucheng was stunned. He couldn't help but scratched his ears, wondering if he had heard it wrong. What kind of divine unfolding is this? Don't you want to tell a secret? Why did you jump to the end of the world all of a sudden? Did you know that at around 11 o'clock tonight, the tourist resort of the Westman Islands will be swept away by a typhoon of Category 10, which will cause tens of thousands of casualties? Starting at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, there will be a typhoon in Jinan that will last for several hours. Heavy rain. After the heavy rain, an unprecedented blizzard will sweep across most of the planet, the global temperature will drop sharply, and the water blue star will enter the 5th ice age. The first one was written down by the original owner when she heard a classmate discussing it the next day, and the second one was her personal experience. And Pei Yucheng's first reaction when he heard these words was, isn't there something wrong with this kid's brain, or did he have a hallucination after watching too many doomsday movies, or did he think he was a prophet? To actually say such an incredible thing. Pei Yucheng felt that he should criticize and educate her seriously, let her listen to those rumors less, focus on her studies, and then report back to the police. But Pei Yucheng hesitated when he saw Xing Yun's disappointed, even a little sad profile face. As a criminal policeman, he has strong observation skills, and he can see that the child in front of him is not acting. She is not joking, but is really telling what she thinks is the truth. Pei Yucheng even felt that he was infected by the atmosphere on her body, which made him feel a little shaken in his heart. This discovery made Pei Yucheng feel a little ridiculous. How could such a ridiculous thing be true? How on earth did you know all this mess? Pei Yucheng's voice brought Xing Yun back to her senses. She just remembered her home star for a while, so she felt a little down. She came from the apocalypse. Having experienced the catastrophe of the apocalypse, she has seen people who are struggling to survive in the apocalypse. She knows what a terrible disaster it is, and also knows that it is not easy to survive in the apocalypse. Her adoptive father is a heroic figure. Many bases have statues of her adoptive father. Many people say that without her adoptive father, the situation on their planet may be worse, and so many people will not survive. Everyone is grateful to him. In the end, the adoptive father sacrificed himself for the future of the entire planet. Xing Yun has admired her adoptive father since she was a child, and hopes to become a person like her adoptive father. That's why she chose to die with that powerful monster in order to protect the millions of ordinary people in the security base behind her. That is her responsibility and her belief. That's why she thought about not only completing the original owner's mission, but also trying her best to remind the people of Shui Langxing, so that they could at least be prepared, so that countless people would not die as a result of the original owner's memory. Xing Yun put away her slightly disappointed mood, turned her head and looked at Pei Yucheng seriously. Whether you believe it or not, what I said is true. If it is false, will it be revealed as soon as the time comes? More importantly, now that technology is so advanced, there are thousands of artificial satellites in the sky, and many meteorological disasters can be warned in advance, so no one has noticed such frequent meteorological disasters recently, right? Pei Yucheng didn't know how to answer Xing Yun's words. He had also listened to his subordinates discussing the information on the internet. Some people said that it was nature's revenge against mankind, and some people joked that it might not be the end of the world. But it was all a joke, and no one would take it seriously. As a result, today a little girl stood in front of him and said to him, "Is the end of the world real?" The corners of Pei Yucheng's mouth tightened slightly, his expression serious, and his eyes were staring at Xing Yun as sharp as eagles, and those eyes were like flames that seemed to burn people. When an experienced detective looks at him with the eyes of an interrogation, the pressure is not too big. If he is a person with a ghost in his heart, he may not be able to withstand the pressure and feel guilty. But the girl in front of her had a calm expression and firm eyes, and was not frightened by Pei Yucheng's appearance at all. "Do you know what you mean by this? If according to her statement, this climate disaster will spread to the whole world in a very short period of time, reading www. In the end, yuyuganshu.com even made the entire planet enter the Ice Age in a short period of time, so it is not just a simple warning notice. The migration of the population is stable, and the social order is maintained stable. All aspects must be considered in such a short period of time. This big battle is no joke. Of course I know what I'm talking about. If it's fake, you can arrest me and go to jail. I'm 16 years old and can be held criminally responsible. And you already know my family's information, so you're afraid I'll run away. Anyway, after 11 o'clock tonight you will know whether what I said is true or false." Immediately afterwards, Xing Yun changed the conversation and asked back, "But if what I said is true, do you know what it means?" Pei Yucheng was at a loss for words. Of course he knew what it meant. The question is, should he trust her? "Why do you want to tell me? With so many big names in Jinan City, why did she take great pains to draw him out? After all, he's just a small detective detachment leader, and he doesn't have much power." "Because you are trustworthy." Xing Yun found Pei Yuchang because in the original owner's memory, after the blizzard, the survivors in Jinan City gathered together with the help of him and the team he temporarily formed, and then went to the south together. At that time, the original owner heard his teammates say that he had just lost his daughter and wife, but he still endured his grief and insisted on building a team and began to search and rescue the survivors. They encountered various things along the way. Without Pei Yuchang, they would not have reached their destination at all. Of course, more importantly, your surname is also worth it. Pei Yuchang's pupils shrank sharply, and a storm surged in his heart. How did she know? There are some people in Jinan who know about his family's situation, but they will never include the underage girl in front of him. Now Pei Yuchang has only one question in his mind: how did she know? Pei Yuchang pursed his lips tightly, his eyebrows twisted into two pimples, and gave Xing Yun a deep look. He neither admitted nor denied, but asked again, "Where did you know this information? Didn't you say it before?" "I'll tell you the news, don't ask me where I got the news, and don't tell me about me. Are you trying to make a fool of yourself? Are you all so unreputable?" Pei Yuchang was choked. He wanted to say, "I just lied to you," but when he saw the girl's bright eyes like stars, he silently swallowed the words. Whether it's an adult or a police officer, it's all about credibility. "But Su Shui, I hope you know that if what you said is true, then as a citizen, you have the responsibility and obligation to tell us everything you know." "Am I not telling you now?" Xing Yun asked back. But I'm just an ordinary person, so I'd be afraid too." Xing Yun changed her name, and her tone softened. "Uncle Pei, you should know that if my affairs are revealed, my personal freedom is free. There are bound to be restrictions. This is inevitable. From another perspective, we will do our best to protect the safety of you and your family." Pei Yuchang hopes that Xing Yun can understand that in the face of national justice, sometimes certain sacrifices are inevitable. "I have said it before. I will only tell you about these things. If you say it, then I will never say more detailed things." In the face of Xing Yun's toughness, Pei Yuchang wanted to scold her and ask her to consider the issue on the side of the country and the nation, and even told her that even if she didn't cooperate now, they still had various ways to make her cooperate obediently in the end. But looking at the girl in front of him who was not a few years older than his daughter, Pei Yuchang still hesitated. This girl is only 16 or 17 years old, and she is still a child who has never been in contact with society. It takes a lot of courage for her to stand up and tell him all this. Does she really want her to face those politicians? Isn't the reason why he left the capital and came to the Jinan City Criminal Police Detachment because of those things? If this child is exposed, he really can't guarantee what she will face, and he may not be able to protect her. Pei Yuchang finally agreed. Although it may be a little troublesome for him, it is not a big problem. When Pei Yuchang left, Father Su didn't have time to ask Xing Yun what they were talking about when he heard his daughter say, "Mom and Dad, let's pack up and leave quickly." "Ah? Leave? Where to go?" Hearing that Xing Yun was about to leave immediately, Mother Su panicked. "Zioxiu, did the policeman find something? Are we going to flee now?" "No," Xing Yun hurriedly reassured, "Jinan City is located in the north, which happens to be one of the hardest hit areas by the blizzard. Although the cold wave has spread all over the world, it is much better near the equator than other places. If you have time, head south." "Oh, so that's the case, then, let's go to Qiyandao." Mother Su knew that many people went to Qiyandao to spend the winter in winter, because the 4 seasons there are like spring, so the first reaction was to go there. "No, we won't go there, we'll go back to our hometown." Father Su's hometown is in a small mountain village in the south of Yun province, with beautiful scenery and pleasant climate. Xing Yun planned to take Su's father and Su's mother to leave Jinan City and go to Yunsheng early in the morning, but Pei Yuchang's arrival made Xing Yun advance the time a bit. Although Pei Yuchang promised Xing Yun that he would not reveal her affairs, it did not mean that he would not send someone to follow her in the name of protection, so Xingyun decided to leave at night. After tonight, there will be frequent meteorological disasters in various places tomorrow, and there will be heavy rains in Jinan City, so she will be ignored by then. More importantly, the original owner's second wish, the person who finally killed their mother and daughter, is now there. Hello home, your grandparents, uncle, and the others are still at home. Now that he is determined to leave, Sue's father and Sue's mother are also unequivocal. They only packed some essential items and winter clothes in boxes, and other things are ready to be bought there. Xingyun bought a high-speed rail ticket with the phone that Sue's father and mother bought for her today, just in time to arrive at her destination early the next morning. Although the plane is faster, Xingyun is worried that the situation may encounter sudden weather changes, so the high-speed rail is a little safer. Hey, it would be nice if we had more time. We could sell the house and get a lot of money to buy more supplies. Father Su, who had just come back from a few calls, heard Mother Sue's words and waved his hand. Come on, don't talk about it, those are all things outside the body, the most important thing is that the family lives well. Have you packed your things? Packed up. Just leave early. It's all taken, didn't you just call? What do you say? Father Su sighed and shook his head. He called his friends to remind him, but he didn't say too much. He just said that the weather has been abnormal recently, and there may be a snowstorm, so they should stock up on more food and cold-proof materials at home. It's a pity that basically no one believed him. Some friends at UU reading www.uuganshu.com said they would pay attention, but more friends asked him if he was stimulated by anything, and he believed in such rumors. After saying that, Father Su glanced at Mother Su again. What post did you say? You see, even our own friends don't believe what we said, not to mention others, maybe they think we are alarmist. How can I do it? Anyway, we have done what we have to do. Believe it or not, it is their business. As long as I do what I can do myself, I will have a clear conscience. Father Su nodded silently. Indeed, that was all they could do. Seeing that Sue's father's brows were frowning and his expression was depressed, Xingyun comforted him. Dad, don't worry, maybe the Weather Bureau will detect the abnormality and issue an early warning at that time. You can just call at that time. Are you sure? Didn't you say before that the country didn't expect the mutation to happen so quickly? That's why so many people died. Maybe this time it will be different. If Pei Yuchang believed her words and took certain measures, the result this time would be different. Not to mention saving all mankind, at least a lot of people will die less. I hope so. The Su family packed their things and went downstairs to take a taxi. During the period, Mother Su also called her friends a few times. Although they didn't seem to believe it, they all said they would pay attention and prepare more things at home. On the other side, Pei Yuchang, who had no idea that the Xingyun family was about to leave Jinan City, also returned to the bureau. He first searched for news about natural disasters around the world during this period on his office computer. The more he searched, the more frightened he became. This made Pei Yuchang realize that what Xingyun said about the coming glacial catastrophe was most likely true. Pei Yuchang looked at the time, it was past 9 o'clock in the evening. He called a friend who worked abroad to which the Westman Islands happened to belong, and it was daylight there. Although his friend was surprised by his request, he agreed to help him follow news from the Westman Islands. In the rest of the time, all Pei Yuchang could do was wait. He has never felt that time is so difficult to pass. Every once in a while, he looks up at the clock hanging on the wall, and even seriously doubts whether the clock is broken. Otherwise how could it go so slowly? I wish I could manually help it go faster. In the end, in order to divert his attention, Pei Yuchang turned on his computer and started searching for content about the blizzard and the ice age, wanting to learn more about it. It was 11:20 unknowingly. When the phone on the table vibrated, Pei Yuchang picked it up and opened it at an unprecedented speed. The whole process took less than 2 seconds. I'm going. A super typhoon hit the Westman Islands a few minutes ago. The typhoon formed very quickly and the speed was very fast. When the Meteorological Bureau found out, there was not much time for everyone to evacuate. Yu Chang, you called me follow the Westman Islands to see if you have any inside information. Hearing the voice coming from the phone, Pei Yu Chang only felt that his hands and feet were cold and his whole body was stiff. What the girl said really happened. So the Ice Age is probably real too? Pei Yu Chang's heart was pounding, and his scalp was numb. This is no longer something he can solve alone. Pei Yu Chang and his friend hurriedly ended the call. He dialed a number again. After connecting, he called out, "Dad. What's the matter? It's disturbing and clean in the middle of the night. Is it long enough?" Hearing the familiar voice from the other end of the phone, Pei Yu Chang couldn't help laughing and crying. The old man was a little angry when he got up. It seemed that he was woken up by himself after falling asleep, and he was a little impatient. "Dad, I have something important to tell you." "Say." Pei Yu Chang said roughly what he heard about the Ice Age from Xing Yun. After he finished speaking, there was silence on the other side of the phone for a long time. After half a ring, Mr. Pei's voice sounded again. "Where did you hear this?" His father neither called him nonsense nor scolded him for being alarmist. Instead, he asked him where he heard it. Pei Yu Chang sensed something unusual. He couldn't help asking, "Dad, have you heard anything?" Last week, the United Nations Environment Programme held a global conference on the greenhouse effect. According to the news from the Antarctic Research Station, the Antarctic glaciers are melting faster than everyone thinks, which may trigger a series of climate changes. At that meeting, some experts proposed that Mercury will face the fifth ice age in the next few hundred or thousands years, and hoped that countries would take measures, but this did not attract the attention of most countries. Why? Why? Because those measures will touch some interests and cause economic losses. Pei Yu Chang was silent, and continued on the other end of the phone. 2 days ago, your uncle attended an internal meeting about the recent frequent occurrence of global meteorological disasters. Combined with various data monitored by recent satellites, it is speculated that the distance from the Ice Age will be the time may be greatly shortened, maybe even in these 10 years. Then why didn't any news come out? What news is there? Apart from causing panic among the people and social unrest, what else can these uncertain news do? Then you can't keep everyone in the dark, right? Then what do you think you should do? Tell the world, and then the people's panic will cause social unrest? I didn't know you were so naive. Pei Yu Chang didn't speak, and Mr. Pei asked, "By the way, you haven't told me yet, where did you get the news?" Pei Yu Chang's right hand clutched the phone tightly, and his knuckles began to turn slightly white. He hesitated again and again, but in the end he didn't let go. "Dad, I said you don't care where I got the news, you must believe me, the Ice Age is real, and the disaster will not come in 10 years, but in 2 days. Time is pressing. We can't hesitate any longer. To know that this is a matter of human survival, it will be too late." The other end of the phone was silent again, and after a while, the voice came, "Do you know what you mean by this?" "Of course I know that there are so many people in the country. If it is true, we must come up with a response plan as soon as possible. What's more, the capital is also in the north, and we may even have to move the capital." There was no sound from the other end of the phone for a long time, as if thinking about how true what Pei Yu Chang just said was true. "Dad, just trust me once, I'm not kidding." Because Pei Yu Chang didn't say Xing Yun, and there was not enough evidence to prove what he said, it took a lot of effort to persuade Mr. Pei. "Okay, stinky boy. I'll trust you once, and I'll chat with a few old guys later. If not, see how I'll deal with you. By the way," Mr. Pei finally urged again, "don't reveal this matter, especially don't talk nonsense on the internet." "I know." Pei Yuchang discussed with the old man for a while and decided to send the female family to the south ahead of time. As for the men at home, whether it's for duty or something else, they'll stay. Afterwards, Pei Yuchang rushed home as fast as he could. He had to convince his wife and daughter to leave Jinan City for the south tomorrow morning. By the time he came out of the house and planned to go to the Meteorological Bureau, it was already 2 or 3 in the morning. Just as Pei Yuchang started the car, he suddenly thought that he knew that he would send his family away to a safer place in the south, so what about the girl who knew all this? Does she stay at home foolishly? Pei Yuchang hurried to Xingyun's house and found that there was no one at home. Pei Yuchang took out his mobile phone and dialed the phone number he got from Xingyun earlier. "Sorry, the phone you dialed has been switched off." Hearing the prompt tone from the mobile phone, Pei Yuchang shook his head with a wry smile, and sighed softly. "Because I was too shocked by this news, all my attention was on confirming the authenticity of the news, and I didn't think of this aspect at the first time." Pei Yuchang pondered for a moment, and decided to call again tomorrow morning. If no one answered, he would go check where they went. "It's not that I want to monitor Xingyun completely, I just know where she is, so I have a clue in my heart, lest I find someone I can't find when I want to find someone." Pei Yuchang restarted the car and drove to the Municipal Meteorological Bureau. There is an acquaintance in the Meteorological Bureau in the city. He is going to go there to watch tonight. The girl said that there will be continuous torrential rain in Jinan City at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and it will even cause floods. He has to go and see if he can see it in advance. What? And the mayor and city officials, he has to talk to them tomorrow morning. He is really nothing as a small criminal police detachment captain. At this time, he can only use the name of the Pei family. And the troops stationed on the outskirts of the city, he also has to get in touch and make all the preparations he can do now. This is an ordinary night, and an extraordinary night. I don't know how many people have been working hard because of a news, staying up all night.